Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 293 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Labor Day, Richard?
Hey, Seth. It is sweltering as we are in another California heat wave, but we have a ton, and I mean a ton of previews. Wizards pacing is a thing of beauty.
Yeah, we are pretty close. I think tomorrow is actually like the last full day of spoilers, and then they have like commander deck stuff after that. So we've got almost the entire set between last podcast and today. So we had a ridiculous amount of Zendikar Rising to talk about. But before we get into that, we have another co-host in Krim. What's up this morning, Krim?
Morning, Seth. I am right there with Richard, enjoying this ridiculous heat wave and these crazy wildfires right now. Well, not really enjoying it. I'm doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, hopefully y'all are staying safe out there. California's been crazy lately with all these fires. So anyway, we have Zendikar Rising to talk about, and we have like a million cards. Seriously, our list is super, super long, which means we should probably start talking Magic. But before we do, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Tigtone, and Tigtone returns for Season 2, with Tigtone and his magically regenerative sidekick Helpy facing down all new mischievous monsters and enchanted chaos on their all-new baffling adventures. Tigtone is created by Andrew Koehler and Benjamin Martian, who serve as executive producers with Blake Anderson of Workaholics. The wizards at Titmouse Animation have created a Tigtone universe that is beautifully unsettling, and you can watch Tigtone Season 2 when it premieres with back-to-back episodes Sunday, September 13th at midnight, only on Adult Swim. So thank you to Tigtone for supporting the podcast today. And let's talk Zendikar Rising. Richard, take it away. Walk us through these ridiculous spoiler cards.
All right, let's talk about new mechanics. So there are basically two new mechanics. There is a party mechanic, a thing that's being called Modal double-faced cards, and then the return of landfall. So landfall, we all know and love. When a land enters the battlefield, something happens. From the original Zendikar coming back. Let's talk about the party mechanic. So all these cards with the party mechanic say this spell costs one less for each, or it gives you a bonus. So this spell costs one less for each creature in your party, and your party consists of one of a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard.
It's so bad.
You know what's so bad about this? It took me like 5 minutes to figure out what the party mechanic was because the reminder text is not on all cards. Some cards just say like for each creature in your party, and you're like, hold on, what are the actual creature types needed to be in your party? Yeah. And it's actually not like clear anywhere if the card doesn't have reminder text because it has like too much text on it. So
I mean, I think
what do you guys think?
I think it's fitting though, because remember like allies last Zendikar, and you never knew it was an ally or not. Now we just don't know if you're in the party or not. So I think it's kind of like on point for Zendikar. But I mean, the mechanic, it feels incredibly win more to me for constructed. Like if you think about it, that's 4 creatures of different creature types you need on the battlefield to have a full party. If you have 4 creatures of different creature types on the battlefield, do you really need the party card for it to be good? So I'm pretty skeptical that the full party cards will be good. On the other hand, some of the cards I think are pretty good even if you just have like a party member, and I think those cards are probably decent. Like if you just happen to have like one creature, you get a bit of a discount on a card that's already like close to being playable. I think maybe the best example of this for me is Zargris, which is a 6 mana 4/4 flying haste double strike with a bunch of other text on it, like Questing Beast style, but it costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So if you can have even just like 1 or 2 party members and get a like 4 mana 4/4 flying haste death touch, or a 5 mana 4/4 flying haste death touch, I think that's actually a good card. So I'm pretty skeptical of like having 4 creatures of different types to have a full party, but some of the standalone cards I think are decent, and it's probably sweet for limited.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty much the point I was going to bring up. I think you don't need a full party for, like, some of these cards just to be awesome on their own. And I think, if you get a full party, then it really is, like, a win more, right? Like, I mean, yeah. But yeah, like, so there's a good amount of cards where I think I could just play on their own actually.
Yeah, what's weird about this is Wizards announced there's a D&D set coming soon. This feels like a D&D thing. Why is this mechanic not saved for that set? It seems a little random.
Who's to say they don't add more?
But yeah, when I read this, I'm thinking like D&D. Like, yeah, let's just gather a party and then go adventuring. I guess that's their intent. But like Seth said, in Standard, you probably don't have a third creature. You probably have like one creature in play. And you're like, well, if I commit one more, I'm going to get Wrath. So yeah. So I don't know how this will actually play out. It's probably going to be a big player in Limited, where you might start playing like 1 mana 1/1s to fill out your party to power up some spells. So it seems cool for Limited, but I just don't see any point in like, it's just too much. Like, you just do not play 4 creatures in Standard and play a 5th or something like that. Like, you're just too far ahead and you don't want to walk into a Wrath. So probably Limited only or EDH mechanic. I don't expect to see much Standard play.
Except for maybe like, was it Tajuru Paragon? Because it counts as all the things.
Well, sort of. So, just so it's clear with those cards, I thought that at first that like, oh, this is a full party, but I actually like tweeted something about it, and it counts as any one party member. So if you had 4 of those, you would have a full party.
Yeah, each creature can only count towards like one type in your party.
What?
Yeah, I thought you could like combo with Mutavault, and then it was going to be really sweet in older
Oh
formats
no,
or
that'd be so broken.
But yeah, so you actually need 4 creatures regardless. Like, you can't have a full party without having 4 creatures one way or another.
Wow. Why?
I mean, Mutavault would just break the mechanic otherwise, right? Because basically all of your spells cost like 3 CMC less if you have a Mutavault on, right?
For every 2 mana?
Changelings would be insane.
Yeah.
Or 1 mana? Yeah, okay. Alright, I guess that makes sense, but but why?
That's you just gotta put together a party and get slaughtered all together in the same board wipe,
that is pretty cool,
ride together,
though,
die together.
We'll have Throne of Eldraine's Adventures, which some of them already fall into the party, like type. And then we'll have the D&D set with the party mechanic and all of this too. So that's pretty cool.
I think it's actually pretty cool that they have kind of this plant for the D&D set. So my guess is, right now, there's not really enough tribe members, for the most part, to make really good tribal decks around the party tribes, like clerics, for example.
No,
I mean, you can play rogues. I know,
thank you.
You can play rogues, but you've been playing rogues even before, even before Zendikar Rising. So I don't know if that counts.
Also true.
But I guess I would assume the idea is then we get a bunch more tribe members in the D&D set, and then maybe you can play like an actual cleric tribal deck or something. So right now you can play these cards as like this weird party, like 4 creature types mashed together tribal deck. And then once we get more tribe members from the D&D set and maybe other sets this year, then maybe you have like legitimate cleric tribal or whatever.
Yeah, I want to see like a lord. I want to see. So most of these cards like reduce the casting cost if you have a party. I want to see like when let's like Cauldron, you have like a party assembled, everyone gains indestructible +3/+3 trample, right? To make it worth adding that 5th creature to the battlefield or whatever. Like
it's 4, like, right? You need 4.
It's 4, yeah. So the 4th creature to the battlefield, you just get a big swole buff and you just come in and like murder your opponent, right? So like. The Green Ascension, whatever it's called or something, right? Or just get a coat of arms effect or something. Like, just, boom, Tron, you're dead.
Tron.
All right.
I mean, I cannot wait to yell that out,
Tron,
by the
right?
way.
There's 4 permanents.
I mean, you can
they're creatures, so they die.
I mean, that's true. You can interact with them. Turns out that would be pretty fun.
You know what's weird, though? Planeswalkers can't be part of the party. That's a little sad.
Well, that's because they fly solo. They're all on their own stories, doing their own things, doubling people's mana. Wait, not this set. Sorry.
All right. Next up, we have Modal double-face cards. MDFC, if you see that acronym online, is what people are calling them. Basically, double-face cards are back. Except now when you play them, you get to choose which side is played. So they don't transform, they don't flip. You just basically choose which side you want to play. And an exciting new land cycle, rare land cycle, is dual lands. So we have the pathway cycle, it's not even a cycle. There's like 6 of them or something. They don't
That's all
really. Is that all of them?
Yeah, they have all of them.
There's 6 so far, but they actually announced that the other 4 are coming in Kaldheim, so we will have the full 10 cycle when we get the next set this winter.
So basically, here is the black-white one. So Bright Climb Pathway is one side. The other side is Grim Climb Pathway. And it's just a land, so they don't have their basic land types. And then untapped, you just tap, add a white. If you play it face up with the Bright Climb way, or you play it on its backside, Grim Climb Pathway, just add a black. So dual lands, but you have to choose when it enters the battlefield which color it will produce.
I love this. I think these lands they're so good. They do not have the type, but if they did, these would be probably the best lands ever. I mean, but I do really, really think these lands are amazing. With Gate Crash leaving, or whatever the current Ravnica set is, with that leaving, we desperately need mana, right? We're losing Watery Graves, we're losing all of the shock lands, so it feels good to have this plus Triomes.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of man these lands, in all honesty. Okay, so they will obviously see a ton of play in Standard, because you gotta play whatever lands exist. I like that they do come into play untapped all the time. On the other hand, they're only ever adding 1 color of mana, which I think is actually a pretty meaningful drawback. One of the upsides of dual lands is you can, play your Hallowed Fountain on turn 1, you can use it to Path to Exile, then you have a bunch of blue mana when you need to Cryptic Command a few turns later. I think people might be underestimating just how clunky it is that these are essentially basic lands once they hit the battlefield. You have choice when you play them, but on the battlefield, it's really not any different than playing a Plains or playing an island. So I think they're good, but I actually think they're kind of a second tier dual land cycle as far as behind shock lands and fetch lands and real dual lands.
So this is exactly why I like them, because you can't. So when we have too many good dual lands in Standard, let's say we have the shock land and check land 2 cycles in Standard, basically everyone plays 3 or 4 color good stuff. This prevents that, right? Your lands can't produce anything at any time, but they do fix your mana, right? So to me, they're better than scry lands and whatnot. An aggro deck can actually play a 2-color aggro deck with these lands, but now everyone can't just jam 4-color good stuff. Let me cast triple green on turn 3 and then white, black, red or something on turn 4. You're what is going on, right? So I actually like this, and it actually makes your decisions matter, right? On turn 1, when you play this land, did you choose the right thing? Did you sequence 3 turns ahead to know what your mana requirements would be? So I think it adds a skill level to it. So I actually really like these lands, and they're probably 4th or 5th best land cycle. So obviously dual lands, shock lands, fetch lands are better. Maybe check lands are better. Fast lands? Yeah, fast lands.
I think these
probably
are better than fast lands. These are better than fast lands, yeah.
But fast
really?
lands? No, so if you had a modern deck with fast lands, would you really replace it with these things?
Well, the reason why I like these more than, because the fast lands, I maybe once again because the decks I would play,
because on turn 4 you always get shafted by
I don't want to draw a land that comes in and play tapped right on turn 4 or something like that, because oftentimes the tapped clause is pretty bad for me, right? So I like these a lot more for that.
Yeah, if you play a 2-color deck, I think this replaces those. But I wouldn't play this in Jund, right? I need my mana. So yeah, I actually think they're pretty high up there.
I would say they're better than the fast lands, but that's only because the decks I tend to lean towards.
Yeah. I would say that I think they're very good in 2-color decks, and especially if you're mostly 1 color and splashing a 2nd color. I feel they're very good there, but I feel they're actively really bad in 3+ color decks. I think they're one of the worst dual lands, because they're not dual lands really on the battlefield. So I think for 2 color decks, or mostly monocolor with a splash, they're great, but 3, 4, 5 color, meh, pretty underpowered.
I'm telling you, Richard's Birds would have won the Mythic Championship if we had these lands. If we didn't have to play freaking Guild Gates on turn 1 just to make our mana work.
Richard's Birds.
Okay, but wait, it doesn't stop there, guys. We're not done with lands, okay? These are like just straight up like lands on both sides. We have spell on the front, land on the back. And we'll start off with our spicy, juicy mythic cycle. So all the colors get a big splashy mythic, where the front side is, some mythic in that color, slightly overcosted. The back side is a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you pay 3 life. So a lightning bolt land. And I'll give you an example. We have Seagate Restoration. 4 blue, blue, blue. So that's 7 CMC. Sorcery. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Flip side is a land, tap to add blue, enters tapped unless you pay 3 life.
So I think this one is like getting overlooked. This is just a solid card. I mean, I think so, just because like I'm gonna, like, if I have nothing to do, it just becomes a land, right? Or if I need the mana early, it becomes a land. But like sometimes when I'm very good at drawing lands in the late game, I actually now have a spell, and I think a lot of these cards are they're gonna tinker with like the deck building like philosophies in most decks, because I mean, how many lands can you play now because now you can play more spells in a deck. Like a while back, I loved how, like, the reason why I loved Companions was because it allowed us to always have something to do, right? At all points of the game, we have something to do. And I think these new, like, double-faced cards are perfect for that. Like, it can be a spell like this, or it can be a land when you need, so there's always something to do. So it may not look like the greatest thing to do for, like 7 mana, but when you're flooding out and, you need to do something, it's better to draw this than a land, right? And like, of these, the 4 that we've seen so far, I really like the blue and I really like the green one. Simic.
I mean, yeah, so I feel like, the blue one, I think the green one might be the best one across formats that we've seen so far, because I think it's going to be a modern staple in Primeval Titan decks. But I think, really, as soon as I saw this cycle, I think this is close to companion level broken. Like, I think this is...
That's exactly what I was thinking.
This is, like... I don't know. Like, I almost can't believe that they did this. Like, this is going to change Magic across formats. Like, I think people are sleeping on it. I'm, like, surprised. Like, people see these cards and they're like, oh, that's kind of, like, overcosted. I'm like, no, it's a land. Like, you take a basic island out of your deck and you get this mythic that draws you a ton of cards. Like, why wouldn't you play this as a 4 of? And, like, obviously, again, you kind of got to be 1 to 2 colors. They do only add 1 color of mana. So if you're playing, like, 5 colors, it's going to be hard to have any land that taps for a single color. But I think these cards are the closest thing we've seen to a companion level mechanic, like, in the last couple of years. Like, I think it's very close to that good and that strong.
Last couple of years, you mean like
last in like 6 months?
Okay, yeah, the most broken mechanic of the set.
So that's why I love it.
So okay. So we didn't like Uro, right? And the problem with Uro is it fundamentally messed with some of the parts of Magic that we've been relying on, in the fact that, if you're spending your time ramping, if your payoff doesn't come, you die. Or if you get flooded by payoffs, you die. Stuff like that, right? This one allows you to basically play no finishers, or, like, if you're a control deck traditionally, and you have like a 7 CMC finisher, the aggro decks are wishing that you draw multiple of them in your opening hand, so that you miss your land drops, or you have these dead cards, and then they run you over. Now you can just play your land, keep going up, making your land drops, and then just kill them with the 7 mana spell. So you really remove that aspect of the game. And the real question to me is, does this 3 life really matter? It's not free, right? It's 3 life, right? Does it matter enough? So when we see shock lands, like 2 life doesn't matter that much, right? Is 3 life the tipping point, and especially in standard where you're more creature heavy? But some things to note, right? You now have a land that pitches the Force of Will, right? You have a land that's not fetchable, right? So you can't just remove all of your islands from your deck and like replace them, because you can't fetch a basic island anymore. These things are soft to Wasteland, Blood Moons, things like that. You can't play them off of an Uro, because it's a sorcery. So there are some downsides, but there's upsides, right? Now Belcher can play lands, right? Because they're not actually lands when you're belching. So they're pretty interesting. I feel like they're going to be broken. To me, it's a mistake. It feels like we're entering the Thalia Drownyard standard where now you don't need to play finishers anymore. Your deck is just all answers and lands. You can't get anything done and they'll just outcard you because now they get a free spell on their land or a free land on their spell. So I'm a little concerned. I expect to see these cards in all formats. Maybe not companion level dominance, right? Because, if you're an aggro deck, you're not going to play 7 mana spell, but there was always a companion for an aggro deck. But I do feel it's going to warp Magic. And I'm a little.
But why not?
A little concerned.
I guess that's the thing. Why not? Like, you can play, let's say mono red, right? For some odd reason, you could just drop 4 mountains and play the Shatter Skull Smashing card or whatever, right?
Oh, I think you do. Like,
right?
I don't know why
not?
Like, sure, yeah, maybe. Like, I don't think the 3 life thing is actually a big deal. Like, people were playing all odd or even converted mana cost cards to make companion works. You're not going to convince me that paying 3 life, you don't even have to. You can play it tapped if you want to. Like, that's fetching out a Shockland untap, which a huge percentage of modern decks do on turn 1, like, every game, and then followed up by a Thoughtseize to go to 15, and, like, that's no big deal. Like, I can't imagine.
There's no big deal.
Axing yourself.
It really hurts my soul that that has to be done.
Like, once the black one gets revealed, whatever it is, just think about that line of play. Take 3 Thoughtseize, go down to 15.
Yeah, the best would be if you could fetch it, right? Then you could, like, you could be Death Shadow. You could turn 1, fetch, pay
Death Shadow's
3
gonna
life,
love
Thoughtseize.
this. Wait, would you, I guess I would think about it, right? Like, if you're predominantly black, like using black mana in Death Shadow, then the swamp one, why not take 3? Heck yeah.
We'll have to see what the black one does. That's the one that we haven't seen for the mythics yet. What do you think about, I know we've been talking mythics so far. What do you think about the lower rarity ones, which are essentially the same as far as how they're formatted, with the big change being the land comes into play tapped. How much does that power these down?
So I think the best one is Hagra Mauling. So 2 black, instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands, destroy target creature. And then the backside is tapped out of black, but enters tapped.
I think that's great. I mean, this is a removal spell, right? And when you're like in a control matchup where I know I don't need like 50,000 removal spells, this can now be a land, right? Where we're playing a mirror match or something like that. I think the versatility of this card is just, it looks nothing, it's not flashy, right? On the front side, but it is a very good card.
Yeah, I think, so I become a little bit more skeptical of like Legacy and Modern in specific when it comes to the lands that come into play tapped. Like, I think maybe they still have some chance in small numbers, but I think as far as like Standard and even Historic and Pioneer, I think something like Hagra's Mauling is very, very strong. I expect this to be definitely a staple of decks in Standard, and like mono black devotion style decks, 2-3 color control style decks. The power of these cards is essentially you get rid of Mana Flood and Mana Screw. Like, if you play a decent number of these in your deck, it literally is. Like, you just, it's impossible to flood or screw. You're always going to have enough lands to play your spells, and you're never going to have too many lands to play your spells. So, I feel like, I don't know, that's the part of this that feels like it changes Magic to me in the way that Companions did, where all of a sudden, like, where does the variance come from? I've already, like, here's my concern with this mechanic as a whole, is like, we've already talked a little bit about, like, with changes in design and rules making it so, like, they have Fires of Invention on turn 3 every game, and every game feels the same. Like, is this mechanic just gonna push us even more in that direction? And more towards, like, Hearthstone and no variants and like seeing the same exact cards every single time on repeat until you, I don't know, play something other than Magic?
I mean, like, even though if like it ends up being like, you know, there's something to do every turn and, you know, you might see some of the same stuff. I don't know. I like the fact that there are a ton of decisions. It kind of like the pathways, right? Like, okay, well, am I going to need this land for later, or am I going to need this spell for later? Well, I need the mana now. I like that. I like that decision tree that it adds to the gameplay. I mean, we'll see once it actually plays out, but right now, I like it. I mean, I still like the idea behind having mechanics. I mean, the companion mechanics, so I don't know. I mean, I like that. I like having something to do every turn. Maybe it's because I played a lot of Hearthstone and all of that.
Yeah, I don't know about Hearthstone Madness. Like, I understand where Wizards is coming from. Like, you know, the games that end in like frowny face on Magic Arena are the games where you flood or you mana screw, right? So this almost removes that entirely, right? Like, if you build your deck right, you can remove it 100%. You just have too many tap lands, right? But that's part of the strength of Magic, like the resource trade-off and all of that stuff. Like, so I don't know. I think it does fundamentally change how Magic will be played. We saw when they did companions, that was not a good fundamental change. You know, we can make fundamental changes that are good. Like, for example, removing damage from the stack, right? We did that. That really changed how a lot of cards worked and how combat worked, and we're better, right? Or we removed mana burn.
Legendary
right?
rule change.
Legendary rule. So it could be good, but I feel no. I feel this is going to be miserable. I feel like...
I mean, but none of these effects feel that broken, right? It's just... They're very... Like, you know what I mean? They're very just... Yeah, right? Like a murder. Okay.
Like, you can play 4 Seagate Restorations to guarantee on turn 7 you always have this card with basically no punishment. Right? Which is different, right? Like, as a control deck, or, you know, as a top-end deck, right? Like... Being able to always whip out your high-end finisher with no punishment is really strong advantage, right? So
I mean,
I don't know about this.
Come on now, Richard. Control decks.
The opportunity cost is just so low because they're coming to your land slot. I think one of the examples I used is like, and maybe this isn't the best example I know, but like, look at Ramanop Ruins. Ramanop Ruins, it comes into play untapped, of course. It costs 5 mana and sacrificing a land to shock your opponent. 5 mana for a shock. That's a 1 mana spell, and it doesn't even hit creatures. And that was so good it was banned in standard. Like, any value that you can get out of your land slot is incredibly powerful because because of the opportunity cost, essentially. Like, the opportunity cost is so low. So even little tiny amounts of value, like a 5 mana shock, is bannably good in standard in Ramanop Ruins case. And I feel like these cannot help but to be incredibly powerful because a lot of them are offering way more than a shock for 5 mana. Like, they're offering more value than that. They're like maybe 1 mana more than you would normally pay for the effect coming on a normal card. So I feel like these have to be insane, right? Like, by that perspective, if you look at the lands that add value that have seen play across formats in Magic, like, these have to be just absolutely absurd.
But 3 life. Can you imagine in standard if your opening hand was 3 of these and you needed to play stuff? You're like, I'm down to 11. Hello, guys. Like, I feel the 3 life might balance it in some formats. Like, I feel 3 life is not
well, modern. I don't know if I can like, if I'm not Death Shadow, I don't know if I'm going to just freely hit myself in the face like for that much.
Yeah. But guaranteed you can put 1 or 2 of these in your deck, right? The question is, can I jam like 8 of them in my deck?
I mean, I want to jam a deck with all of them. I want to be a 5-color deck, have like no lands. I mean, I like, and it just seems like it'd be a lot of fun to try. I probably wouldn't win anything, but it'd be funny.
I mean, with all the lower rarity ones, like, I think each color is getting at least 3 uncommons of the flip cycle. Like, you could build a 2-color deck with no literal lands. Like, that actually seems very possible. Like, yeah, you'd have more tap lands than you would like, but that's an actual thing you can do in standard for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I mean, I will try. I don't know if it wins, but I will try.
Well,
like, although your lands can now get duressed.
Oh my!
That is true. That is a fun.
That's other argument people use.
I love that.
Getting your lands duressed feels so bad.
But if you have 40 or 50 lands in your deck because half of your lands are actually spells, like whatever.
You can also like use bounce lands to recast the spells, right?
Yeah.
There are tricksy things you can do. I feel Uro might save us in standard. You're like, well, I can't play a Seagate Restoration off my Uro trigger, so I can't play 4 of these. I'll only play 2. I feel that will be a consideration. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I think that's why modern players are so excited for Turn Timber's Symbiosis is like super synergistic because you can play the Amulet Titan deck. You play it early game as an untapped land to do whatever you need to do. And then later in the game, when you need your Primeval Titan, you just bounce land it back to your hand, cast it, find your Primeval Titan, which that seems really strong to me.
That sounds like an Eldrazi, what's the band? The Eye of Ugin. That's what it sounds like to me.
All right, we should probably talk about other cards, though.
Yeah, okay, there are more cards than these modal double-faced cards. Oh, by the way, throw your transparent sleeves out the window. They're not going to have checklist cards, so they basically have a blank card now. With pen, you need to write what the card is.
Oh, that's going to be so awkward. People are going to see my 3-year-old handwriting. I don't know what this does
to draft as well in person, but yeah, all of the fun of double-faced cards come back, so get those black opaque sleeves ready. Let's go. Let's talk about Omnath, Locus of Creation. We are on Zendikar. So Omnath comes back, more colors, red, green, white, blue. 4 CMC. Legendary creature elemental. When Omnath enters the battlefield, draw a card. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this was the first time this ability has resolved this turn, you gain 4 life if it's the first time the ability is resolved this turn. If it's the second time, add red, green, white, blue. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control.
Okay.
It's like double and triple landfall.
I know it's kind of like already, you're already winning, or maybe you're not winning, but like, isn't the Teamer or whatever, Ketria ultimatum? Can't you like hope to hit like 4 lands or something? But I don't know if I want to hit 4 lands off my ultimatum.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously good with things like that where you can put extra lands into play. Like, it's a powerful card. The stats are good. It's got strong abilities. It can ramp you into Ugin really quickly, especially with the help of like a Fabled Passage that can get you there super quickly. So I feel like it's a really strong card. The only question is, we've just been talking about how kind of like the whole design of Zendikar Rising seems to push people towards like 1 to 2 color decks to take advantage of all these lands. So my only concern is, how easy is it going to be to cast like this 4 color 4-drop in standard, like in any reasonable amount of time? Like, do you think the mana cost is going to keep it from seeing play in standard?
Risen Reef rotates, right? Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah, all the elemental payoff stuff, the old Omnath and Risen Reef, all that stuff rotates.
I don't know then, like, cause I mean, you could try to play the whole like 4 of every Triome, but then like, you know what I mean? Then you're like, oh boy, you're gonna have nothing but tap lands.
I mean, I guess we got Lotus Cobra. Maybe it's some sort of landfall ramp deck where you're trying to like Lotus Cobra and then like Fabled Passage to fix your mana and play it.
This card's bad. I don't think you want to do any of this, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't think you want to. Like, what are you really accomplishing, right? You warp your mana to play this 4-mana 4/4 that I guess replaces itself with a card draw, but then, like, first landfall does nothing, right? It just gains you life. Second landfall does also more of nothing. Like, it just gives you more mana. I guess you can go from 4 to Ugin, but that's about it. Third one, so remember, you had to somehow play 3 lands on 1 turn. You just deal 4 damage to each opponent planeswalker. I feel all these payoffs are not really worth it. So, you know, you could have played it in the old Elementals deck, but that rotates. So, like, I don't know that you play this at all. Like, triple landfall is pretty hard to achieve for like such a mediocre payoff. Like, just play a Lotus Cobra. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know, like, all these hoops you need to jump through for 4 additional mana.
Yeah, I mean, a 4-mana 4/4 that draws a card when it comes into play is not like a bad base rate. It gets around the dies to Doomblade argument. Although maybe the thing I'm most excited for is the inevitable 5-color Omnath that we'll be getting in a few years on our next return to Zendikar.
Yeah, that's the best part about this Omnath. Sets up 5-color Omnath. All right, let's talk about favorite green planeswalkers. Nissa, Shadow of, I don't know what this word is, guys. Bows? How do you boz? What is this word?
Well, you don't. I don't think it's like the you and like the G. I don't think you would say that. So
it's definitely not bogs.
Yeah,
okay. Bows. Let's go with bows. I don't know. Right. 2 black and a green. So Nissa is now Golgari. 4 starting loyalty. Landfall. So Nissa has a static. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a loyalty counter on Nissa. +1, untap target land you control. You may have it become a 3/3 elemental creature with haste and menace until end of turn. It's still a land. -5, put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control on the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it.
I don't think you understand the sigh of relief I had when this was revealed. I made sure I read this card even like up and down like 50 times, and I saw that nowhere on it doubles its mana. So once I realized this isn't doubling mana, I then looked at it again. I'm like, okay, this is actually a pretty cool card. I think it's pretty powerful. The landfall part of it specifically, right? Because you can play it and immediately like play Fabled Passage, right? And then crack the Fabled Passage, and now we've already gone up to 6 loyalty, so you can already bring something back. I don't know, an elder crayon creature. What's the Gargaroth? I don't know. Yeah. I was gonna call it Elder Crayola, but that's not what it's called.
Yeah, Elder Gargaroth, Questing Beast, something like that would be good.
Like, you can do a lot right there. And of course, it wouldn't be Nissa if she didn't animate some kind of land and do something, right? But once again, it's not a vigilant land, so hey, I'm okay with that
menace. Too. Vigilance has been replaced.
Whatever, I wasn't blocking it anyways. But the thing is, it's still giving you a land, and it's only until end of turn, and so it's still doing what Nissa kind of did before, a little bit like World Waker. But I really like the landfall on it, and I like the -5. I think, and it's not that hard to rebuild the loyalty after you use the -5 either, because there's tons of ways for you to just get lands into play with Cultivate and whatnot, Fabled Passages. So this just looks like a solid 4-drop Planeswalker.
Yeah, this feels like a card to me that I really like it. It's a unique design. It definitely doesn't feel broken in a scary way, which I think is definitely a positive. And that landfall static ability, I think is pretty powerful. Like, being able to keep adding potentially multiple loyalty each turn is going to let you use that -5 ability, way more frequently than you would be able to otherwise. Maybe every third turn or something if you're playing Fabled Passages and some Cultivates. And I think that's actually pretty powerful. It reminds me a little bit of Amonkhet Liliana, where you have a plus ability that kind of makes a creature and then a minus ability that can reanimate stuff. And I think was a pretty decent Planeswalker for its time. So I think this good, definitely not broken, but I'm happy that it's not broken. I'd rather have it just be good than broken.
Yeah, none of the Planeswalkers this set seem broken in standard.
I think you guys are really sleeping on Nissa. I think she's really good. Really good.
I agree. She's really good, but she's not broken.
Real? Okay, give me your.
So I don't think she's is she totally meta warping like Teferi? No, right? But I think she's extremely, extremely strong. I think that -5 is really good given how good our creatures are in standard right now, and the fact that this thing is almost impossible to kill in combat, right? If you think about what's happening, every turn you're gaining 2 loyalty and a 3/3 blocker at minimum.
Well, it's not permanent. You lose the land at the end of turn.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
you don't lose the land.
It only.
Oh, the land goes. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, no. I know why you would think that. Trust me. I know why you would think that. You don't have. I may
reevaluate my decision. I thought the land was permanent. Okay. But I don't know. I feel so on turn 4, reanimating Questing Beasts and things like that. We have a lot of big, beefy green creatures. So I actually still think Nissa's good. Maybe not as broken as I thought before, but still really good because you can keep bringing back Questing Beasts and things like that. And Nissa, the loyalty will jump up really high. These Planeswalkers that can basically increase their loyalty without plussing, I think are really strong. So I actually am excited if a mid-range deck is viable and it has green,
what do you mean?
Which is, shocking, I know. Nissa will be played, right? So Nissa will be played in standard. I'm confident in this.
But it has to be in a deck that is going to be more creature heavy, right? It can't be the Sultai style that's just 4 Uros and, maybe Hydroid Crisis rotates, right? But Uros and let's just say Elder Googlyoth, Gargadon, whatever. That card. Eight, it can't be like 8 creatures, right? You want it to be actually creature packed. And if that's the way Golgari decides to go, that's the direction it goes in, that's pretty cool. It'd be really refreshing to see a mid-range deck that isn't just trying to ramp into Ugin. Right?
That isn't just trying to draw cards.
Yeah, isn't outdrawing you and just going to, like, it feels like if I could see a Golgari rock style deck in standard again, like, I know. Think about that, Richard.
I can duress your lands too? Oh no, what is the standard?
Like, I would love to see that. So, I think though Nissa will definitely still kill me because of that animated land clause, and maybe even reanimate Questing Beast to kill me. I think it's a powerful card, a balanced card, and a refreshing thing to see. When it comes to like all the planeswalkers from this set, I really like the design of all of them.
Oh wait, what's that new Carnage Tyrant? Hold on. What if I reanimate that thing?
Richard, no. First, can we just? By the way, side note, let's stop printing can't be countered hexproof creatures in green. Like, let's stop that. I don't know why we keep doing that. I don't care if it has no trample, by the way. If it's a 1/1, I would still be upset. All right.
I feel like we need to have at least one of those in every format. I mean, we're losing.
When was control good? The control has been removed from like tier 1
like a month ago. You've had 3 years of dominant Teferis. It wasn't that long ago that Teferi Hero of Dominaria was tucking itself as the best deck in the format.
Maybe because of the last 2 years, it's felt way longer. But the thing here is, 3 Fairy doesn't count because 3 Fairy dunked on control, which I thought was control's greatest ally at the beginning until it got resolved against me. But yeah, come on. Stop with the the XX uncounterable hexproof stuff. Come on. Good thing I'll just use Ether Gust that rotated.
Okay, wait, I found the card. It's not that good, okay? It's 7 mana, 6/6. Spell can't be countered. Hexproof haste. Kicker 3. If it was kicked, enters with 4 +1/+1 counters, which is totally irrelevant because this thing's being chumped all day. So.
By what? Castle Ardenvale, and that's it?
Yes. Exactly, Castle Ardenvale.
You're hoping. And what happens when they decided to give it a little bit of trample with, I don't know, Garrick or something like that?
This ain't no Carnage Tyrant. It's only a rare.
It's also...
get out of here.
Also a little sad that it doesn't actually beat Uro. Your 7-drop, you actually have to kick it to actually be able to get through an Uro, so... I mean, maybe a good sideboard card against Krims. I would definitely sideboard it against Krim. Otherwise, I don't think you could really main deck it.
All right, moving on. We have Morag, Fury of Akum. 4 red, so 6 CMC, 6/6. Legendary creature Minotaur Warrior. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it has attacked this turn. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control.
So what you're saying here is Deathbell a Warcry, right? It's time. There's not enough Minotaurs, is there? I don't think there is. No,
yeah, probably not enough to really go Minotaur tribal. Although you can in historic or Pioneer, not in standard though. But
you could have already won in historic if you casted it, right? Deathbell a Warcries, because you just you double you give your thing double strike with Terror of Mount Velis. So who cares?
Yeah, you can win without it. Although I still think this is a really frightening card. This card feels insane to me. Every land drop is getting you an extra combat phase. So you play this, and then you I don't know, cultivate, play a fetch land. It seems so easy to have 4 combat phases, or you can go really deep to a Spoiled Nihiri's Lithoform, this weird sort of Scapeshift-esque card to try to get a bunch of lands into play. Is this card just insane or no? I don't know about standard. It is 6 mana. If you want to do something with it right away, it needs to be 7 mana so you can make an extra land drop. So I feel maybe it's safe in standard, but isn't this a busted commander card where you just play this and essentially just win the game?
No, because most players will play it incorrectly. So the way it's phrased, you have to play your land on second main. If you play it on first main, you basically did nothing because you don't get an untap until the extra combat, and the extra combat happens before your real combat. So what you need to do is play it during do the landfalls during second main. But like Seth said, I think this card is insane. Commander, like, it'll be like a shoe-in staple everywhere. I think I could see play in standard. Just taking the if you untap with this thing, the game is over. But it gives you a Hell Rider effect, right? So it does stuff even if you don't get the additional combat. The only thing holding it back is 6 CMC.
But I mean, is 6 CMC in like
trades
this
with
year,
Uro
like
at 6 CMC?
it does trade with Uro, but like you can like win just if they decide they want to. I don't know why they would attack, but yeah, like, this can definitely win the game when you have that new Nahiri's Lithomancy spell, right? Like it on its own, if you give it like, or I guess no, because if you cast the Lithomancy on the second main, then would it then give you, let's just say you had 6 lands entered? Does that mean you get 6 combat steps?
Yeah, the game is over.
So yeah, like, so this on its own, in a green-red ramp shell, where let's say you go Azusa, Rada, right? You have Azusa, Rada on board, and then you just keep dropping a bunch of lands right there, like in the second main. Like, you get to just pretty much kill them, right? If they tap out and they have no blockers, they're dead.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I feel like if you untap with this, you should just be able to win the game. If your deck is, like, built around it at all to make the land drops, it should be pretty much you untap with it and win the game. I think the question in Standard is, can you untap with a 6-drop? Like, is the game going to still be going? Like, does your opponent have removal? So I think that's the question I have in Standard, because it is one of those, like, in some sense,
Heroic Intervention can keep it alive, and you're already ramping, right? So,
yeah, I mean, if you get up to 8 mana, yeah.
Well,
so
it's not hard to get to 8 mana in this Standard, is what I mean.
What if you replace Morag with Uro and Ugin? Is it a better deck or a worse deck? Using the same ramp shell. I think that's the main contention, right? Like, if you're gonna spend all this time ramping and doing all this stuff, should you just play Ugin or should you play Morag?
Like, Ugin technically requires more turns to win the game. If I untap with Morag, there's a chance I could just win the game right there.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true though, because the way I play against Ugin, it wins the game as soon as it hits the stack because I'm conceding. So Ugin wins way quicker. It doesn't even take a turn or part of a turn.
I think Ugin's winning not because of its effects, but because you just played an 8 mana spell on turn 4, and people are just conceding on that and that alone.
All right, let's talk about another red mythic, Leyline Tyrant. 4 red, so 4 CMC. It's a dragon, it's a 4/4, flying. You don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. When Leyline Tyrant dies, you may pay any amount of red. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target.
Oh, this card's sweet.
Yeah, this card is so cool. I love it. It's great in every way. Art, I think it's well costed for 4 mana. It's what it does, its ability is pretty cool, I love what it's doing here. It's like an upwelling for mountains. And I don't know. I mean, I'm throwing this in my commander decks for sure. And in standard, if it gets bounced by like a Brazen Borrower, it feels kind of bad, but I feel like I'm glad they're going back to that play style though, right? Or design where it doesn't do something immediately when it hits the battlefield, which could, make it seem like it's worse than it actually is. Because we've been accustomed to like everything entering the battlefield with the Cavaliers and whatnot, and then doing 7 things at once when it hits the battlefield. But when you actually look at this, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty powerful card. It could see play in standard. Once rotation happens, all the power kind of slips away. It's a very powerful card.
Yeah, I mean, 4 mana 4/4 flying is good stats. We have definitely seen 4 mana 4/4 dragons be very good. It reminds me of like Thunderbreak Regent a little bit. That was very good back during that era of standard. How much things have changed and how much the power levels increased. Is that still exciting? I don't know, but the ability does kind of protect it if you can untap with it. Like once you untap and get to start floating mana and storing it up, worst case if your opponent ever kills it, you just deal a ton of damage to them, maybe even kill them. So I like how it has sort of protection built in just from the mana that you have floating. That's going to turn into essentially like a Banefire, like a big uncounterable burn spell. At the same time, it does need to sit out on the battlefield a bit. Like you do need a little bit of time to really get it going. So we'll see if that's a deal breaker. I think it's definitely super sweet in Commander decks and expect it to be close to like a staple in Commander decks. As far as Standard, I'm hopeful that it's going to be good.
Like looking at it, I think they're like, it just seems powerful enough for Standard. And like if you top deck this in the late game with all your open mana, just float all the mana, right?
Yeah, like if you're playing Gruul mid-range, maybe, but there's no way Mono Red plays this. Like, it dies to Doomblade. I'd rather play Torbrand. You know, I don't have like, if you have any amount of red mana, like, left over after casting this, like, you've probably lost the game already if you're Mono Red. So the best case scenario is 4 mana, 4/4. They don't kill it. You untap, you hit them for 4, and now you have 4 floating. And then, they're gonna take 4 if they kill it, or 8 next turn. But wouldn't you rather just play Torbrand and do the guaranteed +2 damage on all your weenies and, like, actually finish the game? I feel this is too slow.
Yeah, for maybe mono red.
Yeah, so this has to go, like, but if you're playing Gruul or something, especially with Pathways, how much red can you float now? So,
I mean, you know you're gonna be red eccentric because you want double red for Embercleave. So, I mean, you still want a decent amount of red.
Yeah, if I'm gonna Embercleave, why don't I just get like hasty creatures instead of 4 mana, 4/4 dragons?
Well, no, but I mean, like, I think this card on its own can just be like, so, like, it's not gonna replace Embercleave, but I am saying that like decks like that are playing like the Embercleave stuff, they're gonna want double red anyways, right? And I think this is just like a solid card, maybe if not in the main deck, then out of the sideboard, because it doesn't have to do a ton of damage. Like when it dies, like if they don't kill this immediately, it will kill them. It will kill them with that, like, with that dying clause. So I think this is actually a great card for that and that, like, specific reason.
You can say all these things for Elder Gargaroth.
Well, no, I actually
right? Like if you untap and attack with this thing,
attack.
like the game is over, right? But like it never happens in reality, right?
No, I mean I win through the Gargaroth swings. Actually, that still feels kind. Well, in Standard.
Wait, you've attacked with an Elder Gargaroth before? This is amazing.
Oh, I've been attacked, and then I won. So like the thing here is Gargaroth. I feel like because I can just kill it, right? And that's that. But if I kill this, that's a huge problem, right? Because it's not just a simple dying and then it goes away. It dies and then it blows me up for another like 10 damage or something.
Yeah, unless you kill it right away.
Yeah,
and I think the other thing is, like, it is soft to bounce. It is soft to exile. So there are, like, ways around it. I'm hopeful that it's good in Standard, but I'm kind of on the fence as to just how good it'll be. I do think, like, it's something I would definitely want to play in Commander decks, though, for sure.
All right. Next up, we have Nighthawk Scavenger. 1 black. It's a vampire rogue. Its power and toughness is 1 + star/3. Okay. Flying Death Touch Lifelink. Nighthawk Scavenger's power is equal to 1 + a number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyard.
I just want to say, imagine not knowing Magic and then seeing this, and it's like, why is there a math problem on the bottom right of a card? but this
it's essentially like Tarmogoyf power for your opponent's graveyard. Only. This I think is this card good?
I think I will definitely play this card because it's a rogue, and on top of that, I think it's got the Flying Death Touch Lifelink. It's the Vampire Nighthawk part of it that I love. So I think it's not bad. I think it's decent in like once rotation happens. There's so many good threats that I'm pretty sure people's removal will be taxed. I like this card. I'm gonna play it. I think it's powerful in rogues, like a rogue style deck.
I think this card's good too. I think all you need is 1 card in your opponent's graveyard and you have Vampire Nighthawk, which is still a pretty decent card. Like, maybe not as good as it was 10 years ago, but Vampire Nighthawk is not that far away from being good. And you get a lot of upside built in, where this can definitely be a 7/3 or something. So I think as far as Standard is concerned, in Historic, and maybe even Pioneer in Vampire decks, or even like Mono Black aggro style decks, I think it's really good. I do think, I've had some people ask me about Modern. I think it's like stone unplayable in Modern.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
think
awful.
With Lightning Bolt running around and the toughness not growing, I don't think it's playable in Modern, even though it looks a little goyfish. But I think for other formats, it's really strong.
Playable.
Like in Standard, this is I think good. I mean, like thinking of Thieves Guild Enforcer to kind of already mill, right?
You and your
yeah.
okay,
These
outside
Gilden
of some
Sorcerer is the
weird
truth.
rogue or vampire deck, I don't think this is good enough. Like, you will put in your sideboard, right? Like, if mono red runs up against this and we don't have a lightning bolt in the
Mono
format,
red.
this is bad news for mono red. But if this is just like a 3-mana 2/3, or even say a 3/3, I think it's like stone unplayable. Like, it doesn't do enough for 3 mana.
Really, even with lifelink and death touch and all that, like, you think that's not enough anymore?
Like, it's only relevant if you're playing against mono red. Like, what's the 3-mana lifelink dog hate card?
Kunaros?
Kunaros. Yeah, like, it's like nothing, right? Like, who cares, right? Like, it's not a thing, right? And if it's a 1/3 because your opponent hasn't played anything yet, it's like terrible, right? Like, you can't be aggressive with it. If it's a 2/3, still can't block Questing Beast, right? It has to get to a 3/3. And then it's still only 3 toughness. It like dies to everything. Like, you just really are hoping to slam it against mono red and have it be a 4/3 and like 2 or 3 for one them, right? So I don't think it's playable outside of sideboard slots.
I mean, outside of like a rogue deck, I guess, yeah, maybe not there, or like, but the synergies that it has in a rogue deck, I think is really good.
What is this mythical rogue deck we keep talking about?
It's I swear, it's gotta be real. It's gotta be real after this set. I believe. Look at how many rogues there are. I'm going crazy over here looking at all this stuff. This is great.
I will say it also is a little awkward with Uros running around, because Uro, your opponent just like naturally gets to control their graveyard, so they can exile the right card types and keep it pretty small thanks to their Uros, which I think maybe that's a big vote against it too. It's not like in our current standard, cards just stay in the graveyard. Thanks to Escape, it seems like they leave the graveyard pretty quickly once they're in there.
Unless you're able to constantly refill that graveyard.
But then aren't you just milling your opponent into Uros and cards to cast them, Krim? Like, can your rogue deck beat Uro every turn since you're filling the graveyard for them?
Yes. It just can't beat Nissa. It just can't beat Nissas. I mean, like, okay, so E2 Extinction stock has just like skyrocketed for me. So I've been playing 4 of those. Like, it's exiling whatever I need it to exile. And exile is just at an all-time high when it comes to importance. So, yeah, I think you can. Like, once rotation happens, a lot of power does leave. So if you can just focus your deck to deal with Uro, I don't know, I like it.
I mean, it does trade with an Uro.
It does trade with Uro.
It's 1+ guarantees that it will trade with anything aside from like maybe a Questing Beast that it can't block if it's a 1/3. But I feel like it's a defensive card. It's a super defensive card. So maybe like control decks would play it. Maybe you sideboard it in. But the fact that like if you play a 3-mana 1/3 flying Death Touch Lifelink and hit your opponent, that's like a 20-turn clock. Right? Like, it does nothing. Like, it doesn't do anything. So it's like a blocker. So when you want a lifelink death touching blocker, then here you go, right?
I mean, Gifted Aetherborn still sees a lot of play. I know it's not like a direct comparison, but like that sees a lot of play in Historic and Pioneer. So I feel like Nighthawk Scavenger, I feel like it's better than you're giving it credit for, Richard. Maybe it's not quite as good as Mr. Rogue, Mr. Rogue Grim.
It's somewhere between me and Crim's evaluation.
Yes, I think right in the middle of that is where I'll go.
All right, here is a contested card that we were speculating about last week. Feed the Swarm. 1 in a black, sorcery. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost.
Did I call it on the like right on the dot that it would make you lose life equal to its CMC?
I thought you said like 3 times its CMC or something, but
no. I thought the card would cost 3 times more than it does because it's only 2 mana.
It's a black disenchant. I think we were like, they would never pull a black
better
disenchant.
Than disenchant. Okay, it would be better than disenchant if there was
a creature.
Yeah. This is too good.
I think it's amazing. I agree. It is very good.
Like the downside of enchantment removal is it's enchantment removal, right? So if your opponent doesn't play enchantments, it does nothing. But now it's 100% mitigated by the fact that you can kill a creature. So I would take this over. Like if this was instant speed, it would probably be the greatest like enchantment removal of all time. But because it's sorcery speed, it's slightly worse. But this is like a really good card for black. Like, you would not be embarrassed to play this, right? So, like, is black the best enchantment removal creature, enchantment removal color now? Like, almost.
I mean, did you see broken, like, what is it, broken wings? Like, I mean, that's like or there's something that, like, hits all, like, 3 things, right? Like, if you choose between artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. That's cool, right? It's a lot like that, kinda.
So
I
think
like this
Marlon did point out, you can't kill your own packs, right? It's only your opponent's permanents. So they're like, oh, we kept the flavor. You can't kill your own demonic pact.
I mean, this is like surprisingly main deckable, right? Like, because it has that creature removal on there, like, if enchantments, like last year's meta, when fires and wilderness were running around, wouldn't you just, like, play this as your main removal spell or something in your mono black deck so you can, like, kill a creature and deal with stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. If we were talking about that meta, but moving into new standard, I don't know about that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it lands. It looks like we might not have as many powerful enchantments this time. The build around enchantments. What do you think about Commander? Is this just like in every one of your mono black decks?
Yes. Oh yeah. And like also what, like in for like decks in modern and whatnot, like 8-rack decks and Grixis decks and stuff like that. Now you don't just stone cold lose to an enchantment like a leyline, all like what, like, you know, any of that stuff. And it feels nice to like be in mono black. My demons deck can now finally destroy some dreaded enchantments.
I feel like mono black should lose to enchantments. I might just be the old man yelling at the cloud, but I think that's a feature rather than a bug. That if you're going to be mono black and Thoughtseize me a million times, at least I get to leyline you and be like, haha, take that, Thoughtseize. Like, and now I can't do it
anymore. They can only fix this by freaking circle protection.
What ruined it for me? Or for why I have no sympathy? Veil of Summer. As long as green can draw cards and counter spells, I don't, the color pie is no longer a factor, right? Because green has ruined it for everybody. Because Hydra Krasis draws cards, Veil of Summer counter spells and draw cards, black can have enchantment removal. Just say it.
So every color does everything. Every land is also a spell. I don't know if I like where we're heading. Like, I don't know if I like this path that we're going down. Lands don't matter. Colors don't matter. Nothing matters. It's the most, like, nihilistic year of Magic. Like, oh, boy.
Yeah, whatever.
All right, we're running long, so let's do one more preview. You can check out the rest of the previews on mtgpreviews.com. But let's talk about Akiri, Fearless Voyager, because I'm curious what you guys think about this card. 1 red and a white 3/3 legendary creature, Core Warrior. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. White, you may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn.
I'm already upset. I just feel like Sunforger somewhere just made me upset. But, I mean, yeah, like, of course it doesn't cast the spell, but I think this card is really good, right, for Commander. But
great Boros Equipment Commander. It might be the best Boros Equipment Commander because you get the card draw from each player that you attack. So you can potentially be drawing 3 extra cards a turn. So I think in Commander, you play an equipment deck, and it might be the best Boros Equipment Commander, which is weird because you'd assume Boros has like good equipment commanders because it's like kind of one of the equipment colors.
Good at anything for a long time.
But they really don't. There's good mono white ones, and there's good like Selesnya ones, but there's not good Boros Equipment Commanders. So I really like it for Commander. What about Standard? Any chance?
So, from what we've seen so far, do we see an equipment deck happening?
Yeah, that's my question. So we have Nahiri, we have this thing.
Yeah.
Don't we have what is it? Maul of the Skyclaves. It's a 3 mana. It auto attaches when it enters a battlefield. +2/+2 flying first strike. Equip is 4. That's like
That's not good enough for you to like play an equipment deck, though, right? Like, because I mean, come on.
You just need like a cheap equip. So what you do is you drop Akiri on turn 4, and then you basically have Bogles. Right? You cannot kill Akiri anymore. You can just attach something, and then every combat you're drawing cards. Like, is the game not over?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
as long as there's some like semi-playable equipment.
Shadow Spear can also start making an appearance if that ever gets too out of hand, but also Extinction Event gets around indestructible already, and that's pretty popular.
I mean, and you got Embercleave too. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to be Boros with Embercleave and play this. Like, drawing an extra card each turn is good. Like, that's powerful in your aggro deck.
I like the Indestructible Clause. I feel that's like super strong. So both of these combined, plus it's a 3-mana 3/3. There's gotta be like someone give me a Skull Clamp. give me like
Embercleave's the only equipment I want, right?
Like if there was a Batter Skull or something, or a sword or something, like really good equipment. I think that would make this deck viable. You could just
kill somebody with Embercleave.
You need lots of creatures though.
I think that's the concern. Like, Akiri is a strong card, but will equipment be strong enough in Standard for it to see play? Or is it just kind of in the realm of Commander, because equipment are good there? So I think that's the catch. Like, if equipment are good, I think Akiri will probably be a part of it. Still not 100% sold on equipment deck actually being good enough. I'm not sure if the, like, pump spell equipment that we're seeing in Zendikar, where you get one free equip and kind of it's a sorcery speed pump spell, but then it's expensive to re-equip. Like, is that enough to make equipment playable in Standard? I think it helps, but is it enough? I don't know. Maybe? Like, would you play those as pump spells? Probably not, because actually every equipment we've seen so far has that clause on it. You get the first equip for free, and then you have to pay more than you would expect to reattach it. So, I mean, maybe it might be able to happen.
All right. We're running long, so we'll cut off the previews there. Next week, we will have all of the previews and the commander decks. So you can check out the rest of them on the website. But we'll move on to fish mail now. So if you have questions, you can send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail and get your questions on air. All right. @Bythical. 3 colors can kill enchantments. Would it instead be better to take artifact removal? Oh wait, 3 colors can kill enchantments, 3 can kill artifacts. Would it be better to take artifact removal away from 1 so it's balanced 2-2? Flavor-wise, it makes most sense for white to lose it, as red-green are less about civilization.
I think right now taking away from white and magic is the opposite of what we need to do. But
I don't understand why everyone's caught up on this balance thing. Like, why is that? Why is all of a sudden we've had 27 years of Magic? For 26 years, the same thing was true. 2 colors are good at killing enchantments, 3 are good at killing artifacts. And I never once heard anyone say, oh, there's unbalance in this, and that's a big issue with Magic. Then all of a sudden in the last week, I've heard that from like 1 million people. Is there a big reason why black should get enchantment removal? So I don't really understand the obsession with having a balanced amount of colors killing artifacts and enchantments. I really don't get it.
Have you not watched Avengers Endgame? Balance is all things should be.
Of course I haven't, Krim.
Okay, you're right. Sorry, I don't know what I thought.
Star Wars?
I don't know what I thought I was going to get. That new anime, Avengers Endgame. I think it's great. I mean, it depends how it's done, right? If it's just like destroy target artifact or enchantment, that's way different, right? But it's still flavorful in the way that black got enchantment removal. I like it.
Yeah, I don't like. So Wizards does it because it's easy, right? The easiest way to balance the colors is to make them basically all the same, right? Which is what I don't like, right? Like if you're like, oh, black's not being played because they don't have any, enchantment removal. Well, we'll just give it to them rather than, having black strengths, whatever that is, like be strong enough to overcome its deficits, right? And I think we enjoy that style more, but I don't know, like I actually enjoy white not having card draw, right? Like white has to get its advantages other ways, but now Wizards just like, well, we'll just give it some card draw, right? Now we'll give black some enchantment removal, and then next year we'll give it some, I don't know, we'll give
you forgot to
red some graveyard hate or something, right? Because why not, right? Because there's too many Earls in the format. Red needs to exile cards from the graveyard. Like they're just gonna slowly make all the colors look the same because it's the easiest way to balance the game, right? So, yeah. But I kind of like
why have you not named any of the green cards that broke the color pie? Why have you?
Green was the one that disrupted the force, and now they're just trying to make everyone catch up, right?
Thank you. All right. As long as that's clarified.
I mean, we all know green does everything.
I feel like there's a big imbalance between what colors can play uncounterable hexproof threats. I think we need to expand that part of the color pie into a few other colors.
I mean, you joke, but for some reason, blue has a stronghold on the stack. No one else does anything with the stack but blue, right? Like, Veil of Summer doesn't technically touch the stack, although it affects it, but everyone else is getting their enchantment removal taken, but give me the black counter spell, right? Like, why not, right? Like,
I mean, Mana Tithe already existed, so, you
know, the one white card that can counter.
Guttural Response, that was a counter spell. Pyroblast.
Yes, we're naming cards from 1995. This is
Guttural Response is not from 1995.
But yeah. Okay. Last question. I'm choosing really, really hard here. Okay. Gregory Emmon. How much stronger do you think Path and Blood Moon are going to get with the printing of Bolt lands? Some decks are already running no basics. Will they replace? Will they drop different non-basics?
Ooh.
That's a pretty good. If you get Path and don't get a land out of it, you feel really bad. So is it worth putting the Bolt land into your deck?
I mean, I think you still play basics though, right? Like, I mean, just like, you still gotta play some amount of basics.
I think, especially in formats like Modern, I think it matters less in Standard. Like, then I'm not really sure how you're getting punished. But I think in Modern, I don't think these new lands, especially considering only the mythics come into play untapped, I don't think they're going to replace, like, fetching up shock lands and basic lands. Like, I think in Modern, you're going to have kind of the same core of your mana base, maybe with a little bit less as far as number of shock lands and fetch lands and basic lands. And then these are going to supplement. So I think you still got to have some number of basics, like, you know, Ghost Quarter's a thing, Field of Ruin, Path to Exile are a thing, Blood Moon is definitely a thing. So you still have to keep a functional mana base in Modern, because there are ways to get punished if you get too greedy and try to go all in on these new double-faced modal lands.
It's okay, Seth. I no longer fear Blood Moon. I can remove it with black.
That's
just need that one swap.
My Blood Moons keep getting worse.
No longer will you get me when I tap out.
All right. That's all time we have for Fish Meal this week. We had to cut it short because we have so many previews. If you have questions, be sure to resend them for next week. To @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 293 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Tigtone for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about the rest of Zendikar Rising, the Zendikar Rising Commander decks, Mythic Invitational, whatever else goes down in the world of Magic. So until then, have a wonderful week, and this is the crew signing out.